Light has two visitors, has a group of visitors, Shnei HaMalachim. These two angels come to Sodom, and Light is Yoshe B'Shar Sodom, and Light sees them. Vayakom l'krasam. He has great training from Avram Avinu, and he runs out to greet his guests. Vayishtachu apayim artz vayomer, and he says to them, Hine na Adonai, suru noel beis avdechem, v'linu v'rachzu agleichem eshkamtem v'lachtem u'darkechem. He's mamish a Talmud of Avram Avinu. He's been impacted well by his Rebbe, and he begs them, but also the Chesed done with a sense of respect. He has the same lashon, fascinatingly, as Avram, that he says, my master, al beis avdechem, he calls himself an Eved, mamish, a humility and seeing greatness in these two travelers, and he asks them, please stay by my house, and then you'll go on your way. And these two angels, unbeknownst to Light that they're angels, these two individuals, they say to Light, no, we want to sleep in the street. But Light is not taking a no. He's a Talmud of Avram Avinu, and he's just not taking a no. And Light convinces them to come to his house, and they accede to Light's request. Vayavayu al Beisei, they come to Light's house. Vayasla mishta umatzais afa v'yechelu. He feeds them a gevaldige suda. Teri mishkavu, they haven't yet even lied down, they haven't retired for the night, and word gets around Sodom that Light is guilty of this horrible crime of having guests, of giving out freebies. And the Anshe Sodom are livid, and the Anshe Sodom nisabu al abayis. They surround the house. The entire city of Sodom surrounds Light's house. They are livid, a mob mentality. They're angry. Light had the audacity to host guests, to give out freebies. And the Anshe Sodom surround Light's house in protest. They're protesting Light's decision to have guests. Vayikra Light. And this mob calls out to Light, where are the men that came to you this night? Send them out. The crowd wants blood, and the crowd, this mob, says, send out the men. And Light, in a great act of courage, this man is a student of Avram Avinu all the way. Light faces a mob. A mob is crazy. A mob is not an individual you try to settle down. I've spoken to people who have seen mobs. I've seen my own version. Twice in my life I saw something that resembled mob mentality. It's not one person who's mad. We've all seen a person who's lost their cool. You try to settle them down. There's something called mob mentality. People aren't thinking, they're going crazy. And each one is mechazek the other. There's nobody, you don't settle a mob down. There's no one person who's thinking for themselves. People who have been there, I spoke to people who saw what went on in Baltimore. You know, it's madness, it's insanity and dangerous. People are acting completely without thought and angry, and they don't even know what they're angry about. Sometimes it's just everybody is going crazy. And Light, in a massive act of courage, they're surrounding his house, this bloodthirsty mob, and Light faces them. Light locks the door and faces this nasty mob. He addresses the mob. Then there's a difficult pasuk. Till here, you're following the story of a courageous, remarkably kind individual, Light, and it's such a difficult pasuk. I want to suggest something tonight. I say this with some trepidation. I'm asking the Olam, I'm not like saying for sure, I'm asking, I'm coming to learn Torah. I want to ask the Olam something as follows. Light says a line that's very difficult to understand. He says to this mob, and his behavior till this point has been nothing short of outstanding. Chazal make a diuk that maybe one thing he did was slightly, a little deviated from Avram Avinu. One thing, not maybe, Chazal say one thing deviated, but more or less, almost completely, he's been Avram. He's been remarkable in his generosity to the guests. He's been begging them. Vayeira, he begs them to come. He respects them greatly. Really a Talmud of Avram Avinu. Light's behavior tonight. Last week, Light didn't behave so well. Tonight, Light's colors, who has been impacted certainly by Avram, has shown that profound impact that Avram had on Light. Here's where things take a turn for bad. Light says to the people, Hine nali shtei banos, I have two daughters, asher lo yadu ish, who've never been with a man. I'll send them out to you. Do whatever you want. But the man who my guests don't touch. Filled a Maisa. Wild story. Light says, I'll send out my daughters. Do what you... What? You read the story till here, you're going along. I was learning with somebody this week. We learned a Chumash. I read the Psukim, we just learned a Chumash. I read the Pasuk, the guy, he said for years, I'm upset, like you're reading the Psukim, it doesn't fit. Light, everything he's doing Gevaldig Light. And then you come to this Pasuk, it's wild. Such a crazy thing. What type of Meshugin is this? He's sending his daughters, Rak la nashim ha'el, but to these men, don't al tasu davar. So Rabbeinu Hananel says, Chalila, he says, Chas v'shalom, Chalila, that he was handing his daughters to them. Chalila, Rabbeinu Hananel says. He says, Avada, the pshat is, that it was an expression. He says, kill me, just don't touch these people. Rabbeinu Hananel says it was an expression. Take my daughters, do whatever, just don't touch these men. That's what Rabbeinu Hananel learned. It was an expression. Chalila, he was handing his daughters. He says, Avada, that's not pshat in the Torah. Light was saying, it's an expression as a, take my daughters, I have these. Light is facing a mob and he's talking to them and he's saying, do you understand what it means to me? They came to my house, my covet's on the line, some Mefarshim learn. They came to me, my covet's, he spoke in a language they maybe can understand. It's funny that he said my covet, some Mefarshim, my covet, I wonder that he was saying, I'm not giving, I'm taking. It's my covet, they came to my house, like I push my own covet, not to give. In Sdoim we don't give. My own covet's on the line. The Sodom could hear that. And he says to the people, take my daughters. It's but an expression, Rabbeinu Hananel says. What I want to say, Rabbi say, is why the Ramban is not mashma like Rabbeinu Hananel. The Ramban says that mitoich shvachai yisi gnusai, that in the Torah relating his great shvach, his great praise of taking care of these travelers, of these guests, you see Genusa, it's ridiculous what he's doing. So the Ramban seems to learn Kipshuta, there's a Gnus here. What I'm going to say, Rabbeinu Hananel, I wonder if the Ramban means also. It always bothered me on the Ramban, the whole shvach is gone. It's not like, you mention Epis, he wasn't the best in what he did. This is like ridiculous. This is behavior fitting of Mamish Achaya Ra. This is not like a little gnus epis. He's sending his daughters to Vayeira. What's going on here?
It's a strange expression.
I'm sorry?
Unless the Ramban means it's a very strange expression to say.
Sure, and I'm not asking why didn't the Ramban learn this expression. I'm saying that
maybe that's the gnus.
So I want to say, and I'm not saying it in the Ramban necessarily, we have to study the Ramban carefully. Okay. The Ramban sounds like he's learning Kipshuta. Perhaps in the Ramban you could say this also. But I want to say Rabbeinu Hananel. In Rabbeinu Hananel, so Light was using a popular expression. Light was saying an expression. And Light was saying an expression, kill me, just don't touch these men. When somebody says that really means kill me. You know, in my years involved with all different Bachrums, I've seen there's something called a literal thinker. I once said to a Bachur who had very literal tendencies. I once said to this guy, I said, do you think that's funny? I was like, he was frustrated, he did something publicly. I said, do you think that's funny? And he started clearing if it was funny. He started like clearing if it was funny. I asked the guy in an interview, how many, where did you learn? He said, I learned in such and such year. I said, how many guys learn there? Normal question, you know, conversation. So how many guys? And he's thinking very deeply. His mind was like, well, I said estimate. So he's still thinking deeply. You have to estimate, like, okay, within, I don't get 30. He was going through guy by guy. He doesn't really learn. He was going through, like, how many guys learn, like, how much he takes one say this. He was a literal fellow, you know, how many guys learn there? So he tended to be very, very literal. I wrote this guy a letter who I asked, do you think it's funny? I wrote him a letter, and I signed it. I wrote a nice text. I write like the old fogey way of writing text. I spell out you, Y-O-W. My Y-O-U. My texts are letters. So I signed the text, love Daniel. I get a text back, I'll try. A very literal fellow, like he takes things very exact. That's some people are very literal. That's how they think, very literally. I want here in Rabbeinu Hananel, he said an expression. Light said an expression. He said, kill me, just don't touch these men. Now remember, the Torah records not every word that a Light says, the words that are relevant, Lenetzach. What's the Torah quoting? A literalist learns this. I read the pasuk today. A guy was like upset when I got up to the pasuk. This pasuk is bizarre. It's a bizarre expression, a strange thing to say. Take my daughters. Why does the Torah record this extreme expression that the Rabbeinu Hananel says, Chalila, Chas v'shalom. He never meant it. He never saying there's no pshat, take my daughters. Chalila, Rabbeinu Hananel says. He means, doesn't mean take my daughters. He means, Avada, don't touch these men. That's just the way he was saying. Could you just lay off these men? That's what he was saying. Don't touch my guests. So what's the Torah record? Take my daughters. Certainly for the literal guy, he reads these psukim, doesn't know what to do. And it's expression, so why record such an obscene expression? It's an obscene expression. Why does the Torah record this expression of Light, that Light said, take my daughters? So now you could say it was just how fierce, Avada, you're not going to take them. It's a way of saying, take my daughter, what, you're going to take my daughters? This is like worse for me, Pasha. Somehow Light was saying such an expression. You don't have to be masking to my kasha. To me, it's bothersome. The Torah words something that leaves room for such confusion. Take my daughters. Just don't touch these men. And it leaves questions to be asked. Serious question. Now, Chazal, I want to add B'maisif. Chazal, the Medrash says that Lot was punished, that his daughters, that the Maisa with Lot's own daughters later on, the Medrash says was an einish for Lot. Take my daughters. So is that against Rabbeinu Hananel? He never said take my daughters according to Rabbeinu Hananel. He never meant that. The Medrash says that Lot was punished, the Maisa of Ammon and Moav, that his daughters live with him, was an einish because he said take my daughters. So there was a Maisa, Kilu, a Maisa Pritzus, because Lot said, take my daughters. So is that against Rabbeinu Hananel? So you could tie Nevaita, no, but he used the Prasta expressions that would answer the other kasha. The Torah records that Itaka used the Prasta expression, and he was punished for such an expression. Chalila, that he meant it, but such an expression he was punished. What I want to suggest, Rabbi say, is that we are learning this pasuk, and we read a pasuk, he said, take my daughters. And the Torah is giving him mashmois that his daughters he didn't put in front of these people. And what I want to suggest and ask, I want to ask the Olam, is it possible? Lot does a massive act of Mesiras Nefesh for two Anashim. A massive act of Mesiras Nefesh. Could it be there's a taina, do you do the same for your family? That here the Torah records a strange expression that he used. And an expression that sounds like a hefkerus of his daughter, when the real taina is, you did a murdik act of chesed. Do you live up to this with your family? Do you live up to this at home? Your chesed extends azam mesiras nefesh, and the Torah records an expression with a mashmois that he's giving up his daughters for them. When the Rebbeinu Chananel says Chalila, he's not giving up his daughters for them. But perhaps there's such a tainon, there's a tainon, a light, with such a merit, it's gewaldig to do such merit chesed. Do you do that to your family, light? To your mishpacha, do you match such chesed? And an expression is used which is mashma that you're picking them over your daughters. When in reality, Rebbeinu Chananel says Chalila that he did that. But the picture to us is a man who exchanges his daughters for these people, is the picture Hashem wants me and you to have. He wants us to have that picture. A picture that's not what he did in this story in the simple sense, but in the deepest sense, a person who's, you're so ma'aseh nefesh late, remarkable mesiras nefesh. But for your own family, are you ma'aseh nefesh in such an eifin? I wonder if that's the picture the Torah creates for us here. Hashem wants us to hear this expression. And I don't say, do we see in these psukim that he was bad to his daughters? We don't say he was bad. So Rebbeinu Chananel learns he wasn't doing. We see Ma'irdik and mesiras nefesh for the enem. For the other person, we see remarkable. He's facing a mob to save Anashim or El, don't touch. But perhaps that's what's being said here, that his own mishpacha, he didn't have that type of mesiras nefesh. Perhaps that's the picture that we're supposed to understand, the exchange of the other for his children. We always speak here all the time, the chesed, goimel nafsha, yish chesed, a man who's good to his mishpacha, the importance of the chesed that must start at home, that must be extreme to our mishpachas. That it's gewaldig, certainly, the chesed all over, but the chesed that must be to our mishpacha. I was reading, for many years, I wanted to go visit. For many, many years, I wanted to visit the Tasha Rebbe. We had a guy in yeshiva years ago, there were two twins who learned in yeshiva. Shlomi might remember Heshi and Shlomi Klein? You remember them, Rebbe? Two twins, does you remember them? Two twins who learned yeshiva, beautiful B'nai Torah, special guys, and their father was close to the Tasha Rebbe. And a couple of times I spoke to him to maybe get me an appointment. I wanted to see him very badly. I had heard murdik things, and each time I once with him tried, a couple of times I tried with some other people, and each time for me it didn't end up working out, and I wasn't zeichet to see him. I never was zeichet to see him. And I was visiting my parents recently, and they had a book about the Tasha Rebbe in their house, and I couldn't put it down. Remarkable. What a yid. And the Tasha Rebbe, his madregas were incredible. Specifically, the Avas Yisrael of the Rebbe was something, well, I'll tell you a Maisa. I could share a Maisa, Shmuley, I told you this Maisa?
It's not recorded.
Oh, you heard this Maisa. So let me share, but then the other story is not on the recording. But let me tell you a Maisa with the Tasha Rebbe. The Rebbe, just we'll say this bekitzer, a guy came to the Rebbe was always pushing people to take care of their families. He was a Veltz Bal Chesed, he loved Yidden, every type of Yid, and he was always pushing, take care of your mishpacha. And a Chassid came from Borough Park to Tush, and the Rebbe, in the conversations, the Rebbe chapped that the guy has to do more for his wife, and the Rebbe pushed him to do renovations of his house for his wife. And they figured out together it would cost $18,000. The Rebbe said, I'll pay for the whole thing. I'll raise didn't have money. He didn't have access to such money. He would mitcher. He said, I'll raise the $18,000, build it. The Rebbe handed him $2,000, that's all he had on him. He said, you go to Bar Park, do the work immediately. By the end of the month, tell the builders, do all the work. By the end of the month, I'll give you the other $16,000. That's what it cost, $18,000. The man goes home, takes the $2,000, starts the renovations. Over the month, he does the $18,000 renovations. At the end of the month, he wants to pay the workers. The money didn't come from the Rebbe. The guy waited, and the money's not there. So he travels back to Tush. And he says, Rebbe, he comes in a week after, it's too late, he's embarrassed, the workers want to kill him, he ran away to Tush. He comes back to the Rebbe, Quebec, and he says, Rebbe, the Rebbe says, oh, I'm so tired. The Rebbe apologizes profusely, embarrassed. He said, I don't want to apologize just to you. Let me call your wife. They call his wife together, he apologizes like crazy. I got so tired, I'm overwhelmed. Could you do me a favor? He says to the wife, let your husband stay in Tush 2 days. I'll raise every penny right now. I'll get busy the next day too. I'll raise it. Just let him stay till so he shouldn't come back without the money. The guy stays in Tush. The Rebbe spends 2 days, raises the money, sends him back to 16,000. Shalom al Yisrael. 20 years later, this chassan in Borough Park gets a knock on the door. A yid comes, I have to ask you, Mechila. I don't know who you are. So let me tell you my maisa. He said, 20 years ago, the Tush Rebbe sent me with $16,000 to bring to you. To bring to you. It was about a couple of weeks. It was within the month that the Rebbe promised. And I was going to see you the next day. I put the money in my bank account. I was going to give it to you the next day. And then money left my account. The bottom line is I stole the money. I stole it. I didn't give you, I stole the money. For the next 20 years, I never went back to the Rebbe. I was embarrassed to see him. He sent me with 16,000. I was visiting him. He sent me with 16,000. I stole the money. I didn't go back to see him. It finally came time. I had to ask Mechila. I went to Tush, and I said, Rebbe, 20 years ago, I stole $16,000 from you. The Rebbe said, I'm so proud of you. The Schuya is Klal Yisrael needed. This gewaldig. You're being meide. I'm meichel b'leiv shalom. The Schuya is a gewaldig. You're meide ala emes. The Rebbe gave me tremendous chizuk. The Rebbe said, one zach, I can't be meichel for that chassan. There's a chassan in Borough Park. You're wrong. He, during the month, was panicking. He did another trip back out to Tush and back. I can't be Michael, the tsar you did him. It's not my power. You have to ask him Mechila separately. So I'm here now. The guy said, I'm asking you Mechila. He asked this chassid Mechila. That's this Maisa that's Naira. Maisa Naira from the Tush Rebbe. So the Tush Rebbe called in a Rav from New York, and he said to this Yid, he munted this Yid for not being a good husband. So the Yid got very upset. He said, somebody from my wife's family obviously called you, and it's us, so you listen to one side without the other. He yelled at the Tush Rebbe, he's very upset. So the guy was fighting, the Rebbe was trying to tell him, you have to be better. They're fighting back and forth. Finally, the Rebbe said, I'll be honest. I've never said this to one Jew in my life. I've never felt this to one Jew in my life. I don't love you. The Yid heard it. The Yid burst out crying and said, Rebbe, help me. And he described that Bemis, his wife, had problems, but the Rebbe said that to be a Rav, you got to be a good husband to be a Rav. And Yeshul deserves a Rav. And the Rebbe coached him and worked with him how his wife was all the difficulties, but you have to be good. This is something, the Rebbe's chesed, that here was a Baal chesed of tremendous proportions, but he was pushing shtar chesed to the mishpacha. This was something like a life's work of the Rebbe, chesed to our family, to siblings, chesed to the mishpacha. This was a nekuda the Rebbe pushed a lot. And this nekuda, the chesed of Avram, the chesed of Avram that clearly so much came onto light, his chesed in the parish is amazing. And the courage, he faced the mob out of kindness. He faced the mob's light out of kindness to two strangers, faces a mob, Mesiras Nefesh. But there's a tefillah on light, and I'm not afraid be'etzem to say this word, because that's pshat in the psukim. The drash, the pshat, it all, in the psukim there's a tefillah on light, that on his daughters, now we're saying Rabbeinu Chananel, I think it's stronger. If it's Stam Mishoga, he's a crazy guy, I don't even know how to learn the lesson if it's craziness. We're saying Rabbeinu Chananel that he never meant to give his daughters. But the Torah depicts a taina on the Torah gives over a visual. Send out my daughters, they can take my daughters. It doesn't mean take my daughters. But there's a tviyah here, gewaldige chesed, but it doesn't extend as much to people near him. We'll learn Rabbeinu Chananel, there was no extreme of that he said, really take my daughters. But the expression is brought because there's such a tefillah on the light. And the tefillah is, Rabbi say, that Avram Avinu is not acts of chesed, it's a Baal chesed. A Baal chesed is good to people right near him. A Baal Chesed is good to people right now. Goyim al Nafshe is good to his brother, it's good to his sister. A Baal Chesed is good to his child. A Baal Chesed, it's the people right near him. He saw from Avram Meir the Chesed, and it's gewaldig to do such a courageous act of Chesed to the outside. It's gewaldig to do acts of Chesed is wonderful, is so special, and that's a Maisa Pa'ul of Chesed. But goyim al nafshay ish chesed, but you're not a man of kindness. That's a pa'ula, it's an action azah. When it's you, then it's to those nearest and dearest to the person. So light is gewaldige chesed, such mesiras nefesh v'chesed. But when it's you, it's to your sibling, it's to your brother. When it's your essence, it's nafshay, it comes to his family. When it's who he is. When it's a pa'ula of action, when it's a pa'ula, it's an action. He saw by Avram rizge chesed. And it rubbed off on him heroic acts of kindness. But the ish chesed, the man of kindness, the one who it becomes mamish is mahus, it's goyim al nafshay, it's good to those closest to him. And light as a tefillah, and it's so fascinating to me that mitoich it's mesaper, b'shvacha is mesaper b'gnusay. This is mamish within the shvach, but it wasn't who he was. It's a pa'ula of chesed, but it wasn't who he was. I want to tiny Rabbi say, how does the same man who does such a ma'aseh chesed move to Stein? Sometimes the hepech of chesed and light. I want to tiny it's this word, Rabbi say. You could do an action of something and not be that. He did a pa'ula of chesed. An ish chesed is good to his family. His goyim al nafshay. Light can move to a sdaim because he can do a rizige act of chesed that's off the charts with tremendous courage and passion, like he saw from Avram Avinu. But Gufa, because it wasn't his essence, because there's a tefillah to his mishpacha that wasn't such acts of chesed. And clearly there was some tefillah of a pagam in how he related to his mesiachas to his mishpacha. And in that tefillah, the Torah words this poor expression that Light says, take my daughters, but don't touch Anash Ma'el, expresses this tefillah on Light, that mitoich is shvach of a mardik pa'ula of chesed, but he's not an ish chesed, he's not a man of kindness, it's not who he is. It doesn't extend to those nearest and dearest to him, it doesn't extend there. It's interesting in halacha of tzedakah, if you research tzedakah, so it says aniyeh ircha koidman. The tendency is it's so much cooler to give tzedakah out there. Think about ourselves. I'm not coming to make an appeal for the yeshiva Ketana. I wasn't asked. But it's much cooler to give tzedakah, to send it overseas, than to give to your local girls' high school. There's a bigger want. It makes bigger news. It's much more. It's not to give tzedakah nationally. It's international news. To give tzedakah locally, so you'll be in the Republican American. A guy wants to get international fame. Here, it's a local nice. Okay, you gave to your kids elementary school. But a man of kindness, the kindness comes and begins and is focused on those nearest him. Aniyeh ircha and tzedakah, the aniyim of a person's city come first. The people closest to him are the main acts of kindness and chesed and chiyuvim are to the people right next door. It's so easy to overlook the one next door and to see far away is so easy. To be mechazik, Rabbi say, the chesed of Avram Avinu. We're studying Avram, and here's a Talmud of Avram who we're saying didn't get this nekuda. He was nishtaimeh from the chesed of Avram, but he didn't become an ish chesed. He could move to Snaim. Because if you do brilliant, beautiful acts of chesed, but you don't become a man of kindness, you could still move right to Snaim. And what we're saying that to become a man of kindness, the chesed has to be to the ones right nearest us. The chesed, the kindness has to be to the ones most near, most close to us. I want to say, Rabbi, something interesting, that Avram Avinu himself, we're taught about the kindness of Avram and Lech Lecha. Don't ever be lost on you that he fought a war to save his nephew Lot, his nephew. Goyim al nafshay, his nephew Lot. And I'm fascinated that Lot himself perhaps didn't learn the lesson of Avram's treatment of Lot. Like you yourself were saved by Avram. He taught you Goimel Nafshay. Light saw Chesed but didn't see Ish Chesed. Avram himself's Chesed that were taught a few instances in the Torah. One of the great Chesed of Avram is he told his yeshiva rabbi, said, you imagine the Rebbe says there's a big settle on the Rebbe is not saying shir today, we're going to fight a war together. Vayeira es chanicha. He closed the yeshiva for a day, we're fighting a war. What are we fighting a war for? Because my nephew's been captured. Because his nephew, Nishpa, he hears that his brother, this is a mishpacha, Nishpa Achiv, his brother has been captured. And he closes his yeshiva for a day and says, we're fighting a war for a tkufa. We're fighting a war for his brother. That's a man of kindness. Because the relative, the one close. You can have a kindness for far, for glorious, for distance. But the chesed of the ones closest, it's less reported, it's less noticed, it's perhaps less celebrated by the world, but that's an ish chesed. That's a man of kindness. And Avram practices that on Lot. And Lot sees all the kindness but doesn't understand the ish chesed. So he also is engaged in a rizga act of kindness but far away. And to his daughters, it's not the same way. Whatever the tefillah was, and I don't know the acts of in what way he didn't do it for his daughters. And it's not told to us. But it wasn't for mishpacha. It wasn't for his mishpacha. That's not an ish chesed. That's a man who can live in Sedom. So that's what I wanted to share, practical for all of us. That in being mechazik, the midas of Avram Avinu and the chesed that Avram taught our people, the chesed that Avram put in our DNA, that the chesed to mishpacha, to our children, to family, to a brother, to a sister, chesed to the mishpacha, to be mechazik. I want to be mechazik. We have a moment to make a phone call. We call what about our brother? What about a call to a brother? What about a call to a sister? What about to family, to mishpacha? I want to be mechazik that and say that, of course, we have glorious acts of chesed, and certainly it should be practiced to the world, but start by a brother. Start by relative acts of kindness. That's something extremely, extremely big. I was zeicha yesterday to go for the first time in my life. I went to the kever of Lubavitcher Rebbe. I'd never been there. Yesterday I had a reason. I wanted to be mispalel. True this for the dean, for Shlomo Zalman, Ben, Alexandra, Amira, and I wanted to be mispalel. So I went to the kever. I had to be there for Levaya nearby, and I went to the kever to daven. And certainly there are many aspects to the Rebbe, many aspects to the Rebbe Zeichet Tzaddik L'Vrach, to this Tzaddik. There are many aspects, but the kindness to another Yid that he gave over, the Chesed, he was always giving. It struck me, all the pictures the Rebbe is handing. It's $1, a coin, a piece of cake. He's always handing something to somebody else. It's funny, there are a lot of pictures there. He's always giving something. You just almost couldn't catch it. They couldn't get him a picture. And I guess he was always handing something to, whether it was, I saw 3 pictures with cake, with a quarter, I know some coin, it was a silvery coin, and $1. Just always handing to the next. And a lot of what he spoke is doing for others. Is doing for others. A lot. I can't say it's only what he spoke about, many things. But he spoke a lot about doing for others. He spoke a lot. So it's on my mind, the topic always, when you're studying Avram, we have to think about Chesed. But specifically, Rabbi Yisai, the chesed of those nearest for us. We all want to do things for Zchus Refuah Shlema, for Shlomo Zalman. We're friends of Yankov. And we want to Refuah Shlema Avada. We're Mispalel, and we want to Refuah Shlema for Shlomo Zalman. Let's be mechazik chesed to our mishpachis. Chesed to the family. Chesed, more savlanis, more giving, more doing for mishpacha. Let's be mechazik there. Such a schus, be such a schus refuah shlema. Specifically, when we are chesed, we're thinking of all different people. It's not our typical thought goes first. But let's be mechazik specifically, literally tremendous chesed. What would be wrong chesed to a child? Just more patience, more giving, more understanding, more ava to a mishpachas. That's what I wanted to ask the Olam would be a schus that this week, or a schus refuah shlema, we could be mechazik, learn from our Tata Avram Chesed, but specifically goimel nafshay to our families. Have a wonderful night. I got in Shabbos, as I say.